Change is not lightning. It doesn't strike in a flash. It's not sudden. It's not sexy. It's a decision made in silence and honored in repetition. If your life is off course, if your days feel like déjà vu, if your results don't match your potential, don't look at your dreams. Look at your habits, because your habits are not just actions. They are proof of what you believe about yourself. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. And your systems are built on the bricks of your behavior laid one habit at a time. Most people want transformation, but few are willing to be transformed, because transformation demands destruction of the old ways, the old story, the old identity. It demands the death of your autopilot. And that's why most stay stuck, because rewiring your habits isn't just about changing what you do. It's about redefining who you are. So today, we start there, not with hacks, not with shortcuts. With the one shift that makes all other change possible, you are not your habits. You are the architect of them. Your current routines, they're not fate. They're blueprints you agreed to often without question. But now, you wake up. Now, you question everything. Why do I wake up at this hour? Why do I reach for this food? Why do I scroll, delay, explain, escape? Because behind every action is a pattern. And behind every pattern is a philosophy. And if your philosophy says, I don't have control, then no strategy will ever save you. But if you change the philosophy, you change the pattern, you change the person, you change the life. Because once the philosophy shifts, the old excuses evaporate. The story of I'm just not disciplined dissolves. The identity of I'm not a morning person gets rewritten, because habits don't belong to personality. They belong to intention. So now the real work begins. Not on your phone, not on your calendar, but inside your mind. You need to see your mind for what it is, a machine. And the code that runs the machine is repetition, not emotion, not inspiration, repetition. If you repeat it, it becomes real. If you reinforce it, it becomes you. So what have you been rehearsing? Every time you hit snooze, you rehearse avoidance. Every time you procrastinate, you rehearse powerlessness. Every time you quit early, you rehearse failure as identity. But that also means this. Every time you show up, you rehearse discipline. Every time you choose discomfort, you rehearse power. Every time you finish what you start, you rehearse a new reality. That is the rewiring. Not massive action once, but intentional action relentlessly. Because you don't become great by doing something big. You become great by doing something small, with absolute commitment, until it becomes you. Rewiring habits means mastering momentum. Not the feeling of momentum, the math of it. You stack tiny wins. You build streaks. You create an identity that says, I don't break promises to myself. That is the foundation of everything. Because most people aren't struggling from lack of time. They're struggling from lack of trust in themselves. And that trust is only rebuilt one way. Consistency over hype. Forget motivation. Motivation is the spark, but what you need is the engine. And the engine is systems. Want to read more? Stack it to your coffee. Tie it to a habit you already have. Make the trigger automatic so your behavior becomes unavoidable. Want to eat cleaner? Don't rely on willpower. Make the wrong choice harder to access. Make the right choice the path of least resistance. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Because true power isn't needing less struggle. It's needing less decision. That's what the best performers do. They don't try hard. They design well. Their life is a loop, built around their future, not their feelings. Because when your identity catches up to your intention, you don't try to be disciplined. You just are. You don't force your habits anymore. You flow them because they've been coded into your nervous system. They've been imprinted onto your story. And that story, that's what matters most because you can't outrun a story you're still committed to. If the story is, I always fall off track, you will. If the story is, I'm not consistent, you won't be. But if the story becomes, I'm a builder, I don't need to be extreme, I just don't miss, then the results follow. The confidence compounds. The environment adapts to you. And suddenly, you're living in a body, a rhythm, a reality that used to be your dream. Because the dream was never a destination. The dream was always a system. Then we keep building. Because this isn't just about improvement. It's about rebirth. This is about becoming someone so aligned, so rooted, so disciplined in identity that nothing in your old world survives the new one you're creating. And for that, you need more than intention. You need clarity. Clarity is not preference. Clarity is precision. Clarity says, this is what I do now, not someday, not when it's easier, now. Clarity isn't an emotion. It's a system override. It's what allows you to cut through the noise, to delete the unnecessary, to filter every distraction through the question, does this serve the life I'm building? Most people can't rewire their habits because they're still vague. I want to be better. I want to be healthier. I want to be successful. That's not clarity. That's wishful thinking. Clarity says, I wake up at 5:30. I train 5 days a week. I read 10 pages a day. I create content before I consume it. I track every rep, every dollar, every hour. Clarity is a weapon because when you know exactly what matters, you stop negotiating with everything that doesn't. And when you stop negotiating, you start executing. That's where vision kicks in. Vision is not fantasy. Vision is the blueprint of your behavior. It's what shows you the price of inaction. It's what gives your routine a pulse. Because the days will get hard. The feelings will fade. The hype will wear off. But vision will whisper through the fog. We're not done yet. Keep moving. Vision makes your habits holy. It makes the repetition feel sacred, not suffocating. Because now every action is not just a task. It's a testament to the future you've already seen. And when vision meets discipline, you move from change to transformation. Discipline says, I don't care how I feel. I care who I said I'd be. You don't skip because it's raining. You don't delay because you're tired. You don't pause because no one's watching. You move because you said you would. And that alone rewires your identity. It tells your brain, this is real now. We don't miss. And when discipline becomes your language, action becomes your rhythm. Not random action, not frantic action, aligned action. Action that moves in one direction. Action that says, I no longer chase dopamine, I chase destiny. Because that's what rewired habits do. They make results inevitable. They collapse the gap between effort and identity. And when your identity shifts, you stop seeing resistance as a threat. You see it as proof. Proof you're no longer living in survival. You're stepping into standard. That's when adaptability becomes natural. You're no longer attached to method. You're married to mission. You're willing to change the plan, but you never change the principle. You're fluid, but not fragile. Flexible, but never unfocused. And when the storm hits, because it always does, you don't panic. You pivot, not out of desperation, but out of design, because now you've built the one thing that outlives every storm. Resilience. Because resilience is not just endurance. It's evolution through pressure. It's not that you get back up. It's how you get up. Smarter, sharper, stronger. Because every fall now has a function. Every failure becomes feedback. Every delay becomes data. And that's what separates the ones who try from the ones who transform. Trying is emotional. Transformation is engineering. You engineer resilience by building a new response to chaos. The old you would panic. The old you would escape. The old you would binge, scroll, rationalize, hide. But the rewired you? You pause. You breathe. You study the storm. Because now you expect resistance. You welcome it like a rival that sharpens your blade. And you no longer collapse under pressure. You calibrate. That's the difference between temporary motivation and permanent identity shift. Because now you don't just survive hard things. You harvest them. You pull power from pain. You find rhythm in wreckage. You extract clarity from confusion. And you do this because now you are a learner, not a reactor. A student. You don't just do the work. You study the process. You reflect. You refine. You relaunch. That's how you stay dangerous. Because now every rep rewires your mind. Every set shapes your soul. Every win, every loss, every step is part of the feedback loop. And the more you learn, the faster you evolve. Because now you're not seeking shortcuts. You're building systems of truth. And the final truth, you are not your habits. You are the author of them. You are not your past. You are the programmer of your future. And now that future is not a fantasy. It is a framework. Because every habit is a vote. Every repetition is a brick. And every brick is building something permanent. A body you respect. A mind you trust. A legacy that outlives your name. Because now you don't just do things differently. You are someone different. The rewiring is complete when your actions match your alignment. When your schedule matches your standard. When your life becomes the loudest proof of your philosophy. And in that moment, when you look around, when you see the world reacting to your new rhythm, when the old you tries to whisper back in, you'll smile and say, that version of me doesn't live here anymore. Because this is what it means to rewire your habits for total life change. You don't just change how you behave. You change who you are. And the world, it has no choice but to rise to match you. Most people never decide. They wake up each day and react to alarms, to emails, to opinions, to pressure. They live on autopilot, driven not by purpose, but by proximity. Whatever is loudest wins. Whatever is urgent steals their energy. Whatever the world hands them, they accept. And slowly, silently, invisibly, they drift. Not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, but because they never declared, this is where I'm going. And life does not reward the drifter. It forgets them. It buries them in busyness. It drowns them in distraction. It seduces them into surviving, while deep inside, something sacred begins to rot their potential. But not you, because you're here now, listening, waking, confronting. And that means there is still time to decide, time to live with intent, not with casual interest, but clear command, not with half-hearted goals, but with unshakable direction. Because the truth is sharp. If you do not decide who you are, the world will decide for you. And it will choose something small, something safe, something numb. It will give you comfort without fulfillment, security without freedom, activity without alignment. And then, one day, when the noise has faded, when the race has slowed, you will be left with a haunting question. What did I do with my time here? That's why we don't drift. That's why we don't sleepwalk through life waiting for the right time. That's why we don't let the wind carry us, we set the sail. We live with intent. And that starts inside, with mindset. Not the kind you paste on your bathroom mirror, the kind you bleed for, the kind that is earned in silence and proven in storms. Mindset isn't just thinking positively, it's thinking powerfully. It's the inner conviction that no matter what the world throws at me, I still choose who I am. It's waking up and asking not what's easy, but what's required of me today to move toward the life I was born to live. Because drifting is default, but intent is design. It is war against mediocrity. It is the conscious, continuous decision to shape every moment before it shapes you. It is mental sovereignty. Your thoughts become your compass. Your standards become your guardrails. Your vision becomes your fuel. And belief becomes your breath. Because intent without belief is just a wish. But belief, real belief, it doesn't beg. It declares. It doesn't whisper, I hope. It roars, I am. And that's where power is born, not in circumstance, but in certainty. Not because it's easy to believe, but because it's essential to become. You must believe before the breakthrough. You must believe before the evidence. You must believe even when it costs you relationships, comfort, familiarity, because belief is the door. And most never walk through it. They stand outside waiting for proof, waiting for permission. But you're not waiting anymore. Because now you know your life will not rise to meet your potential. It will rise to meet your self-image. So raise it. Raise it beyond your upbringing. Raise it beyond your environment. Raise it beyond every lie that told you to stay small, to stay realistic, to stay silent. Because belief without boundaries becomes the birthplace of clarity. And clarity? Clarity is your sword in the fog. It cuts through noise. It eliminates confusion. It gives you the power to say, this matters. This doesn't. This is who I am. That is who I'm not. Most people drown in options because they never took the time to decide what actually matters. But you are done drifting. So you clarify your life like a master sculptor chisels stone, removing everything that doesn't belong, not because it's bad, but because it's not yours. You make room for greatness by cutting the good. And from that ruthless clarity emerges something holy. Vision, not fantasy, not projection. Vision is intention made visible. It is the movie playing in the theater of your soul. The life that pulls you when everything else pushes. The destination you've seen so clearly that turning back feels like betrayal. Vision is what gives your pain purpose. It tells you, this suffering isn't random, it's rehearsal. It tells you, this sacrifice isn't lost its alignment. Vision lets you endure what others can't, because you see what others don't. And when you live with that kind of sight, when you see who you could be, who you were meant to be, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to the couch. You can't go back to drifting. You can't go back to average. Because something wakes up, and that something demands purpose. Not just what you do, but why you do it. Not just what you build, but who you become through the building. Purpose is the difference between exhaustion and emptiness. People burn out not because they're doing too much, but because what they're doing doesn't mean anything. But when you move with purpose, even the hard days feel holy. Even the grind feels sacred. Even the repetition becomes revelation. You don't count hours. You maximize moments. You don't escape work. You worship the process. And that process, it demands one thing above all: discipline. The ability to live in alignment with your intent regardless of how you feel. Discipline is not control. Discipline is commitment to your future self. It's not about doing what's hard, it's about doing what's true. Even when you're tired, even when you're scared, even when the world says, just take a break. Discipline says, not now. I have a future to protect. Because every undisciplined choice is a vote for regret. And every disciplined decision is a step toward freedom. Live with intent or drift with regret. There is no middle path. Then breathe deep, because this next part is not for the faint of heart. This is where intention becomes incarnation, where thoughts turn into flesh, where dreams grow legs and move. Because once you've decided, once you've chosen purpose, vision, discipline, now you must act, not occasionally, not when you feel ready, not when you're inspired. Now, because action is the language the universe responds to, not your plans, not your vision boards, your behavior. That's how intention becomes real. You move. You get up before the sun. You train your body when no one's watching. You speak truth even when your voice shakes. You do the work no one applauds because you understand legacy is built in silence. That is the cost of alignment. You cannot live with intent and act from hesitation. You cannot move with vision and keep waiting for someone else to go first. You go first. You become the evidence. You make your life the loudest voice in the room, because action without permission is the purest form of freedom. It says, I no longer need the world to agree, I just need to become. And as you move, as you build, as you live aligned to intention, you'll begin to notice something strange. Even the pain becomes sacred. Even the setbacks feel designed. Even the losses feel intelligent, because gratitude takes over. Not the shallow kind, the deep, cellular kind. The kind that says, thank you for the obstacle, for the delay, for the resistance, because it shaped me in ways ease never could. Gratitude that turns hardship into fuel. That turns why me into try me. That turns every dark moment into a cathedral. You stop needing life to be perfect. You start seeing that it already is. You understand now every moment was a teacher. Every person was a mirror. Every season was a sculptor. And you are no longer bitter. You are better. That's what intent does. It doesn't just change your direction. It changes your perception. And when you start living from that level of gratitude, you become resilient. Not just strong, not just tough, but resilient. Resilience is not bouncing back. Resilience is bouncing forward. It's not recovering. It's rebuilding better. It's falling 10 times and standing up 11, not because you have to, but because you were born to. You were not designed for ease. You were designed for evolution. And evolution doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in crisis. You don't become powerful despite the pain. You become powerful because of it. So bring the pressure, bring the storm, bring the silence, the setbacks, the seasons of nothing working, because all of it becomes you. And if you embrace that, if you let go of needing it to be easy, needing it to make sense, needing it to be fair, then you rise into your final form, the learner, the master of humility, the one who never stops growing, not because they're broken, but because they are unshakably whole. Learning is not weakness. It is worship. It is how the strong stay sharp. It is how the great stay grounded. You study your own life like scripture. You study your mistakes like maps. You study Pio Plena to copy them, but to expand your context. And because you never stop learning, you never stop evolving. You become impossible to contain. You outgrow your past. You outgrow your limits. You outgrow every box they tried to stuff you into. And now there's nothing left to wait for. You're no longer a wanderer. You're no longer drifting. You are deliberate. Every move, every word, every breath with intent. Then let the final flame rise, because this is the moment of return. Not return to who you were, but return to who you were meant to be. The one who was always there beneath the layers, beneath the fear, beneath the conditioning, the confusion, the chaos. The one who was never lost, only buried. Buried under the weight of expectation. Buried beneath the noise of the world. Buried by the lullaby of comfort and compromise. But now you remember. Now you rise. Not to impress. Not to compete. but to become the kind of person who lives every breath with fire, who walks with conviction, who speaks with clarity, who moves not because it's safe, but because it's true. This is the life you were always meant to live. A life of intent, not reaction, not survival, not drifting between jobs, between moods, between months, wondering where the time went, but a life where every action is a vote for the future you designed. A life where you wake up on purpose, for a purpose, with purpose. A life where regret never sets foot because discipline already claimed the space. A life where every scar becomes sacred. Every trial becomes testimony. And every setback becomes the exact resistance you needed to forge the next level of you. Because you are not a product of your past. You are a weapon forged by your decisions. And today, you decided. You decided to stop asking for easier and start asking for excellence. You decided to stop chasing applause and start building alignment. You decided to stop drifting and start dominating your direction. Because that's the truth, isn't it? You were never afraid of the hard. You were afraid of the responsibility, of owning the fact that your life, your entire life is yours to create. But now you know. And once you know, you can never unknow. So this is the line. This is the vow. No more drifting. No more regret. From this day forward, you live with intent, with your head held high and your heart wide open, with your actions in sync, with your values, with your mission etched into your spine. You build what you were born to build. You become who you were born to be. And when the end comes, when the story closes, when you look back on it all, you won't feel regret. You'll feel reverence because you lived like it mattered. And it did. And it does. And it always will. Live with intent or drift with regret, but not both. You've already chosen. Now go prove it with every breath you've got left. The calendar doesn't change you. A new week doesn't change you. Another Monday, another sunrise, another round of this time I'll really do it doesn't change you. The world spins, the clock ticks, the seasons shift, but nothing changes until you do. This is the truth most people never confront because it's easier to wait for circumstances than to take control of them. It's easier to point at the economy, the boss, the schedule, the trauma, the timing gand, say, that's why I'm stuck. But the truth is, you're not stuck because of your surroundings. You're stuck because of your standards. You're stuck because you've been waiting for life to change while you stay the same. But life doesn't respond to hope. It responds to you. It responds to the energy you bring, the boundaries you build, the habits you honor, and the identity you embody. It responds to your alignment because nothing changes until you do. Not in theory, in action, in behavior, in thought, in discipline, in mindset. That's where transformation begins, not in the world, but in the mirror. The mirror never lies. It shows you exactly who you are not, who you pretend to be, not who you post to be, not who you want to be. It reflects your rituals. It echoes your excuses. It reveals your reality. And the moment you look into it without flinching, without defending, without avoiding, just the moment your life begins to shift. Because change is not an event. Change is a decision to stop blaming, a decision to stop waiting, a decision to stop letting the old you make choices for the future you. The difference between where you are and where you want to be is not found in motivation. It's found in the micro movements of your life, the things you do daily when no one's watching. And if those movements are driven by fear, fatigue, or the fantasy that someone else will come save you, then no matter what year it is, you're still living the same story. Because you can't build a new life on old habits. You can't create transformation with the tools that built your limitation. And you can't rewrite your story using the same ink that wrote your excuses. You must change. And that change begins with mindset. Not the kind that feels good to talk about, the kind that demands you confront the weakest parts of yourself. Mindset is not positivity. Mindset is perspective under pressure. It's what you choose to believe when nothing is working. It's what you say to yourself when the world goes silent. It's the standard you set in the moments that no one claps for, no one celebrates, and no one will ever see. Your mindset is the foundation, and until it shifts, your external life will always return to the level of your internal expectation. That's why broke minds sabotage wealth. That's why victims sabotage opportunity. That's why undisciplined minds ruin divine timing. Because your mind is either your engine or your anchor. And it's built not in bursts, but in belief. Belief in what you could be even when what you are doesn't look like much yet. Belief in the next version of you, the one that wakes up early, speaks with clarity, moves with purpose, and walks into rooms with conviction, not confusion. Belief isn't inherited. It's earned through repetition, through action, through honoring the voice inside you that says there's more. Because there is more. But you don't get it by staying the same. You get it by becoming. That becoming starts when belief births clarity. Clarity cuts through chaos. Clarity simplifies. Clarity doesn't give you more to do it. It gives you one thing to fight for. Clarity says, this is the life I'm building. This is who I must become to build it. And anything that doesn't serve that mission gets cut. Clarity removes distraction. Clarity gives your yes power. Because behind every yes that matters is 1,000 sacred no's. And when you get clear, truly clear vision takes over. Vision isn't wishful thinking. It's warfare. It's the picture of your future so real, so detailed, so emotionally charged. It makes staying the same feel like violence. It's what pulls you out of bed when your body wants sleep. It's what keeps your mouth shut when small talk tempts you. It's what makes the work, the boring, daily, gritty, thankless work feel holy. Because vision turns routine into ritual. And when you live by ritual, you don't need motivation. You have discipline. Discipline is the difference between a season and a system, between hope and habits. Discipline says, I don't need the mood. I made a move, and I honor it daily. Discipline is self-respect in action. It's the evidence that you love your future more than you love your comfort. It's the way you say to your highest self, I've got you. I'm not going anywhere. I will not abandon this path. And with that discipline comes action. Not erratic, emotional, desperate movement. Aligned action. Focused action. Uncompromising action. Because nothing changes until you change. And once you change, the world changes around you. Your finances shift. Your relationships shift. Your health, your business, your energy, they respond to the new you. But they don't lead, you do. Because when you lead, everything follows. And what fuels your leadership is not noise, not speed, not hustle for the sake of movement. What fuels it is gratitude. Not the gratitude you post online. The kind that breaks you open. The kind that makes you stop mid-struggle and whisper, thank you for this pain because it woke me up. Thank you for the setback because it showed me who I was becoming. Thank you for the detour because I never would have found my edge on the smooth road. Gratitude is how you hold your power in the middle of problems. It's not passive. It's not weakness. It is the ability to look life in the face and say, nothing you throw at me will make me ungrateful because I use everything. Every challenge is fuel. Every delay is data. Every hardship is another weight added to the barbell of your becoming. Because this is who you are now. You don't flinch at difficulty. You fortify in it. You thrive in the fire. Because you're not trying to get back to who you were. You're building someone new. Someone who bends but never breaks. Someone who adapts faster than average. Someone who transforms pressure into presence. Because resilience is no longer a nice idea, it is your natural state. And resilience is not bouncing back. It's bouncing forward. It's rising smarter, faster, deeper every time life tries to bury you. It's not about never falling. It's about always remembering who you are when you hit the ground. And who are you? You are the one who learns, the one who grows, the one who refuses to repeat lessons that were meant to evolve you. Because now you learn differently. You don't learn just to know. You learn to become. You study not just with your mind, but with your life. Every mistake is a mirror. Every win is a whisper. There's more. Every obstacle becomes your curriculum. You're not a victim of experience. You are a student of it. And the more you learn, the more you shed. You shed the version of you that begged for validation. You shed the one who waited for signs. You shed the one who delayed, distracted, explained, and excused. You've outgrown your old life. You've outgrown your old limits. And now the ground beneath you is different. The air you breathe is different because you are different. And the world responds to who you are, not who you want to be, not who you pretend to be, not who you used to be, but who you show up as now. And if you show up changed, everything changes. The room shifts. The standard rises. The results compound. And the regrets disappear because you didn't wait. You didn't hope. You changed. And now you're living a life built not by luck, not by force, but by internal transformation. That is real wealth. That is real freedom. And that is how you know the old you is gone. The one who waited. The one who made excuses. The one who thought time would solve it. Gone. And in their place, a force, a presence, a person who doesn't need guarantees because they are the guarantee, because they know nothing changes until you change. And you've already begun. Then let the silence fall. Let the dust settle. Let the excuses die. Because this is the moment you rise for real. Not with a spark, but with a firestorm. Not with inspiration, but with identity. Because this is not a motivational speech. This is a resurrection of the version of you you buried under fear. The one you silenced with doubt. The one you locked away in the name of playing it safe. But that version, the one built for impact, for legacy, for power, they're alive now. And now the question is not, will life change? The question is, how deep are you willing to go to change yourself? Because this is not about results. This is not about trophies, applause, or approval. This is about returning home to who you really are. Before the noise. Before the programming. Before the world told you how small to think. Because you were not born with limits. You were taught them. And now, you unlearn them. You strip the story down to the bone. You throw away the script. You build new rules. You move like someone possessed by purpose. You speak like someone who's done waiting. You walk like someone who understands. Nothing changes until I change. Not the market, not the job, not the world. Me. I am the system. I am the switch. I am the signal the universe was waiting for. And I don't knock on doors anymore. I build the house. And anyone who walks in, they rise too. Because that's the kind of gravity I carry now. Because when I changed, I became the proof. That transformation is not theory, it's available. That greatness is not inherited, it's chosen. That pain is not punishment, it's preparation. And the life I wanted was never out there. It was inside me waiting for me to stop talking, stop hoping, and start becoming. And now I'm here. No longer interested in someday. No longer curious about how long it will take. Because I've already decided, as long as it takes, as much as it takes, no matter what it takes. Because this is not a phase. This is not a moment. This is a rebirth. And from this moment forward, nothing changes unless I do. And now, I've changed forever. Average doesn't come knocking. It slips in silently, uninvited, disguised as normal, disguised as reasonable. It creeps into your habits, your goals, your thoughts until it owns your mornings, your effort, your identity. And by the time you realize what happened, it's already set up shop in your soul. Because average is not a moment. It's not a single decision. It's a pattern. And that pattern is a disease, a slow erosion of the fire that once lit your chest, a daily decay of the clarity that once moved your feet. It tells you, that's good enough. It tells you, take it easy. It tells you, why try so hard? And if you listen long enough, you begin to believe it. You begin to settle. You begin to rot while standing still. Because make no mistake, average is not neutral. It is not the middle ground. It is not okay. Average is regression, dressed in comfort. Average is decay disguised as balance. Average is potential betrayed by permission. And if you let it live inside you long enough, it kills your hunger, your mission, your becoming. But here's the truth. They don't teach in school. Average is a disease you can cure. It does not own you. You are not genetically average. You are not sentenced to mediocrity because of where you came from. It's not written in your blood. It's written in your choices. And choices can change. So if you're tired of waking up uninspired, if you're sick of living between goals you don't chase and dreams you don't claim, if you've had enough of doing just enough to not feel guilt but never enough to feel glory, then it's time to rise. Not slowly, not casually, not eventually. Now, because average has stolen enough from you. It's robbed you of mornings you didn't own. It's robbed you of conversations where you bit your tongue. It's robbed you of decisions you delayed, truths you avoided, work you knew was yours to do. But no more. Today you stop feeding the lie. Today, you cut the disease at its root. And that root is mindset. Because the mind is where average takes hold first. Not in your schedule, not in your bank account. In your belief, average begins when you start to think small feels safe. When you confuse peace with passivity. When you start to believe that just because everyone's doing it, it must be okay. But look around. Is it okay? Is drifting through life okay? Is quiet desperation okay? Is dying with your best still inside you okay? Not for you. Never for you. Because you weren't built for average. You were built for greatness. And that greatness begins the moment you take back control of your mind. Because when you fix the mind, the body follows. The habits follow. The world responds. And that mindset must be bold. It must be unreasonable. Because reasonable thinking is what got you here. Reasonable says, don't rock the boat. Reasonable says, be grateful for what you've got. Reasonable says, at least you're not failing. But greatness does not come from reason. It comes from conviction. Conviction that you were not born to blend in. Conviction that your life is a message, not a mistake. Conviction that no matter how deep the average has sunk into your bones, you can burn it out. And that fire begins with belief. You must believe that this life can be more. That you can be more. Not when things are perfect. Not when the stars align. But now, right here, right in the middle of the mess. Right in the middle of the weakness and the doubt and the shame and the regret. Because belief isn't built in the light. It's forged in the shadows. It's forged when you show up anyway. When you say, I don't care how long I've been average. I don't care what they said about me. I don't care what I failed at before. I'm not done. I'm not broken. I'm becoming. And once you believe, once you stop arguing for your limitations, clarity begins to rise. Clarity says, this is who I am. Clarity says, this is where I'm going. Clarity says, this is what I will no longer tolerate from myself or anyone else. And when clarity arrives, vision becomes visible. Vision that burns so bright it blinds your old excuses. Vision that makes average impossible to entertain. Vision that pulls you forward when your motivation falls apart. And with vision comes war. Because the minute you start living above average, average will fight back. It will call you arrogant. It will call you obsessed. It will beg you to slow down, to play nice, to blend in again. Don't, because you've seen too much. You've tasted what it's like to want more. You've felt what it's like to dream in color while others are living in gray. And now the only way out is through. Then brace yourself. Because from this point on, you no longer walk like the rest. You no longer crawl through the days hoping for less pain. You no longer beg for ease, you train for war. Because discipline is now your sword. And you don't swing it out of fear. You swing it with precision. You understand now, average was never beaten by ambition. It's beaten by execution. Discipline is the cold, steady hand that says, I do what I said I would do, even when I no longer feel like doing it. Discipline doesn't ask if you're inspired. It asks if you're committed. It doesn't wait for the mood. It becomes the mover. And every time you choose discipline over desire, every time you delay comfort to protect your calling, every time you silence the voice that says, skip it today, you put another nail in average's coffin. Because this is what average fears most: not talent, not intelligence, not charisma. Consistency. The boring, relentless, unseen days of showing up, of doing the reps, of keeping the vow you made to yourself when no one else was looking. That's what makes you dangerous. Because average relies on your weakness. It counts on your emotions to lead the way. But now, you've reversed it. You no longer feel your way into action, you act your way into identity. And that identity, it moves fast, with direction, with violence toward your old patterns. You stop starting and stopping. You stop overthinking. You stop waiting for certainty and start creating it. Because action is your new default. You're not here to discuss it. You're here to do it. You're not here to explain the plan. You're here to embody it. And the more you act, the more the ground shakes beneath you. The more resistance rises. Good. Because pressure is the signal that you're no longer average. Pressure is the gate to power. And now you meet it like a warrior, not with panic, but with presence. You breathe in chaos like oxygen. You bend with the wind, but never break. Because you've trained in the dark. You've bled in silence. You've sharpened your spirit until it slices through storms. You are now resilient. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You've buried your excuses. You've buried your self-pity. You've buried the weak version of you that used to beg the world for permission. Now, you command it. You lead not because you have all the answers, but because you've earned the right to be followed. And still you remain a student, because you know mastery is never final. You learn from failure. You learn from discomfort. You learn from the hard lessons average avoids. You devour wisdom like oxygen because growth is your true wealth. Not titles, not likes, growth. That sacred inner evolution that says, I will be better tomorrow, not because I need to prove anything, but because I owe it to the future version of me that's waiting on the other side. So now, here you are, standing in the light. The disease has been exposed. You can see it, know in their eyes, in their talk, in their hesitation. Average is everywhere, but not in you, because you've made the decision, the final one, not to try, not to wish, but to cure it once and for all. Then take a breath, because this is it. The moment your story splits in two, the life you were living and the life you refuse to live anymore. This is the line. This is where you end the war with yourself, where you stop fighting for your limitations, where you stop justifying smallness, where you kill the version of you that kept shrinking to fit inside boxes you were born to break. This is where you bury average, and not with noise, with proof. With action so loud it silences every voice that ever said you couldn't. With effort so relentless it makes quitting irrelevant. With standards so high that mediocrity dies just trying to breathe next to you. Because now, you are a problem for average. You are the one who rises early, moves with force, speaks with clarity, and lives with fire. You are the one who no longer waits to feel ready. You are the one who shows up regardless. You are the one who builds brick by brick, breath by breath, with no audience and no applause, because alignment is louder than approval. You are the one who says, I may have come from average, but average will not come from me. And from this moment forward, you walk differently. Not because you're arrogant, because you are aligned. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you're better than who you used to settle for. You know what's on the line now. Your future, your peace, your name, your example. Because someone's watching you, a younger version of you, a child in your home, a peer in your circle, a stranger praying to believe again. And your decision to rise, that ripple might be the reason they don't drown. This isn't just personal, it's legacy. And legacy doesn't come from average. It is born in the trenches. It is carved into time by people who refuse to let their potential rot in the soil of good enough. So rise. Not once. Not sometimes. Daily. Let your habits scream where your mouth used to talk. Let your work speak what your excuses used to whisper. Let your actions build the life that average told you you'd never deserve. Because now, you know the truth. Average is a disease, but it's one you can cure. And the cure isn't found in a book, a course, or a coach. It's found in the mirror. It's you. You are the antidote. You are the shift. You are the beginning of a new standard for yourself and for everyone who follows your flame. So light it and never let it go dark again. There's a weight most people never feel until it's too late. It creeps in slowly like dust on a dream. It builds silently and invisibly behind every excuse, every delay, every I'll start tomorrow. And then one day it crashes, not in volume, not in violence, but in truth. The truth that you had the time, the truth that you had the talent, the truth that you had the chance, and you didn't take it. That's the weight of regret. It is silent, but deafening, invisible, but suffocating. And once it settles into your chest, it doesn't let go easily. Regret doesn't weigh pounds, it weighs tons. It will bury a man deeper than failure ever could. It will hollow out the soul of the woman who played it safe. It will haunt the mind that said, not now, one too many times. But there is a way to avoid it. There is a lighter weight, a weight that doesn't destroy, but builds. A weight that doesn't break you, but forges you. It's called discipline, and it weighs only ounces. It's the weight of getting up when you don't feel like it. It's the weight of saying no to comfort when no one would blame you for saying yes. It's the weight of showing up again and again, long after the motivation has died and only your standards remain. Discipline is the cost of greatness. It is not loud. It doesn't show off. It doesn't seek applause. It lives in silence. It thrives in repetition. It is the sacred grind that no one sees, but everyone feels once it pays off. And it always pays off. The world may not notice it at first. The results may not arrive immediately, but that small ounce you carry each day, the morning routine, the extra rep, the second wind at midnight, it is accumulating interest. It is compounding identity. Every act of discipline is a deposit into your future self. It says, I matter too much to let myself off the hook. It says, I refuse to live with the weight of what if. It says, this pain I feel now is lighter than the pain I'll feel if I give up. Because that's the secret most never learn. Discipline is temporary. Regret is permanent. The sting of saying no to temptation fades. The ache of waking up early passes. The sweat dries. The soreness fades. The sacrifice becomes strength. But regret lingers. It replays memories in the middle of the night. It whispers in your ear when you see someone else living the life you knew was possible. It sinks into your gut when you realize you trained everyone else to believe in you except yourself. So carry the ounce now. Do the work. Build the habit. Deny the easy path. Because what you avoid today becomes the anchor of tomorrow. And what you embrace today becomes your advantage. You see, people think discipline is about rules, restrictions, a prison, but they're wrong. Discipline is freedom. Freedom from chaos. Freedom from inconsistency. Freedom from the emotional roller coaster that runs most people's lives. Discipline is your shield in a world full of distractions. Your anchor in storms of doubt. Your compass when the path grows dark. And it doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. It asks, will you do what you said you would do even when the feeling has faded? Because feelings are fragile. They're swayed by weather, by mood, by opinion. But standards stand. And that's what discipline creates, a life built on internal standards, not external circumstance. You stop reacting to life. You start creating it. You start owning your time, your energy, your output. You stop blaming the day and start dominating the day. Because now you're not just drifting, you're directed. That direction is your edge. And it starts with one decision: to choose the lighter weight today so you don't have to carry the crushing one tomorrow. Because once you carry the weight of discipline long enough, it begins to carry you. It builds something underneath the surface, quietly, powerfully, permanently. It builds belief. Not the kind of belief you borrow from a podcast or copy from a quote. The kind that's earned. The kind of belief that comes from doing hard things when no one is clapping. From choosing consistency over chaos. From becoming the kind of person who follows through. Belief is not found, it's forged. Every act of discipline is a vote. And with every vote, you are casting a ballot for a new identity. You're no longer trying to achieve something. You're becoming someone. Someone who doesn't talk about potential, someone who embodies it. Someone who doesn't ask for an easier path, someone who becomes stronger. Someone who doesn't wish for certainty. Someone who creates it from within. And that belief, it begins to bleed into everything. You speak differently. You move differently. You enter a room and people can feel something, an unspoken certainty that doesn't need to explain itself. Because now your clarity is blinding. No more wandering, no more second guessing, no more drowning in the opinions of people who've never built anything themselves. You have clarity now. You know exactly who you are, and more importantly, who you are not. You know what matters. You know what you're building. You've burned the distractions. You've silenced the noise. You've removed the unnecessary. You're no longer trying to do everything. You're doing the essential, the few moves that change everything. Because clarity is power. And with that clarity, your vision sharpens. And vision is not optional. It is oxygen. Without it, you suffocate on the small. You drown in urgency. You become a slave to the calendar, to the crisis, to the cravings of the moment. But with vision, you rise. You say no to what doesn't serve your future. You say yes to what scares you but stretches you. You start moving not just with momentum but with meaning. Vision makes the pain make sense. It gives the sacrifice significance. You don't just grind, you grow. You don't just work, you wake up. Because vision makes your daily discipline a sacred act of destiny. And that vision once seen cannot be unseen. It will chase you. It will haunt you. It will burn inside you every time you betray it for a cheap excuse. Because once you've glimpsed what you could be, the cost of staying the same becomes too high. And from that fire comes purpose. Purpose is not a slogan. It is not a mission statement. It is not something you discover on a retreat. Purpose is forged in the trenches. It is built through resistance, through honesty, through ownership. It is the deep knowing that your life is not a random collection of habits and obligations. It is a message, a movement. And you are the messenger, but only if you accept the weight, only if you choose the ounce, only if you're willing to carry discipline like a crown, not a chain, only if you wake up every day and say, not today, regret, not today, because today you train, you build, you honor the weight. You don't run from pressure, you become pressure. You don't beg for peace, you create it through power. You don't hope for transformation, you prove it through action. Every step, every rep, every early morning, every lonely night, it's not just what you're doing, it's who you're becoming. Then brace yourself, because this is where the fire turns into force. Action is not something you wait for. Action is not something you feel your way into. Action is not an option if greatness is your standard. Action is your identity. You don't act because it's easy. You don't act because the stars align. You don't act because someone gives you permission. You act because not acting is a betrayal of your future self. You act because you said you would. And in a world addicted to talking, thinking, planning, and waiting, you become dangerous the moment you decide to move. You don't need another webinar. You don't need another quote. You need to do, because clarity without action is useless. Belief without action is fantasy. Vision without action is delusion. Nothing lives until you breathe into it with behavior. That's why the greats aren't always the smartest. They're not always the most talented. They're the ones who showed up anyway. The ones who moved when it hurt. The ones who dared to look foolish. The ones who failed forward with fire in their eyes. Because they understood this law. Discipline in action becomes identity in motion. And once your identity is in motion, nothing can stop you. You stop waiting for energy, you create it. You stop waiting for time, you command it. You stop waiting for the world, you become the world's signal to rise. And the signal is clear. You don't need easier. You need execution. And when that execution becomes your rhythm, adversity becomes your training ground. Because now you've become resilient. Resilience is no longer something you admire in others, it's what you live. It's the muscle you've trained every time the alarm went off and your body said no. Every time you got knocked down and rose without complaint. Every time you lost and learned. Resilience is not endurance. It is evolution. It is pain transmuted into power. It is rejection turned into redirection. It is the moment you realize life was never trying to break you. It was trying to build you. So you stopped cursing the storms. You started becoming the storm. You stopped praying for escape and started preparing for war. Because you know now, adversity doesn't weaken you. Avoiding adversity does. And so you leaned in. You adapted. You stopped needing perfect conditions. You stopped needing smooth terrain. You stopped needing certainty. You became fluid. You became agile in chaos, calm in crisis, anchored in ambiguity. Because adaptability is the signature of leadership. It says, I will not be shaken. I will bend if I must, pivot when needed, but I will not break. Because the mission is too important. The purpose is too sacred. The time is too short. And the calling is too loud. So you keep moving. You keep building. You keep becoming. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. And at the end of it all, when the dust settles, when the results arrive, when the world finally sees what you always knew, you won't be surprised. You won't be shocked. You'll simply smile because you carried the weight they refused to pick up. You paid in discipline, so you never had to pay in regret. And that, right there, that is a life well lived. Then here it is, the closing of the gap. The moment the journey meets the mirror, the place where all your excuses are laid to rest and only one thing remains your decision. Because now you know. Now you've felt it. Now there are no more illusions. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. And the longer you delay that truth, the heavier it becomes. There are no shortcuts that will carry you where discipline won't. There are no hacks to outpace regret. The path is simple. Not easy, but simple. Do what you said you would do. Become who you said you would become. Show up for your destiny before it shows up for you. Because here's the truth most run from. The clock is not waiting. The world is not pausing. And the man or woman you could be is slipping away every time you let the ounce go untouched. Every time you hit snooze. Every time you choose distraction over development. Every time you lie to yourself that tomorrow you'll start. You are placing another brick on the wall called regret. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can tear that wall down. Now, with one act, one choice, one moment of uncompromised courage. Start. Move. Lift the ounce. Let your actions scream louder than your doubts. Let your habits defy your history. Let your consistency become your character. Because this isn't just about goals. It's not about six-packs or bank accounts or applause. It's about becoming someone your future self thanks you for. Someone your past self dreamed of becoming. Someone who looks in the mirror and says not with arrogance, but with deep, quiet pride, I did not settle. I did not surrender. I chose the ounce. I chose the discipline. I chose me. So rise. Rise not for attention. Rise not for validation. Rise for the vow you made to your soul when no one else believed. No more wishing for ease. No more excuses disguised as reasons. No more letting the weight of regret sink its claws into your chest. You are not a victim. You are a weapon. You are not fragile. You are forged. You are not here to tiptoe through life safely to death. You are here to leave fire in your footprints. And if that requires sacrifice, then sacrifice. If that requires sweat, then sweat. If that requires discipline, then carry it with honor. Because there is no heavier burden than wondering what you could have become if only you had tried. So let this be the day the weight of regret dies. And let something greater be born in its place. A life sculpted not by chance, but by choice. Ounce by ounce, day by day, act by relentless act. Because in the end, discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. And now you know which one to carry. You don't need more time. You don't need more books. You don't need more podcasts or more motivational clips or more journals full of ideas you never execute. What you need is to move. Because the world doesn't change for the person who learns the most. It changes for the one who acts on what they've learned. You've read the quotes. You've heard the speeches. You've written your goals. But until you act, you are only accumulating potential energy. And potential energy never built anything. It never changed the world. It never shifted your bank account, your body, your identity, or your legacy. Only kinetic energy does that. Only movement. So let this hit you like truth in a quiet room. Learning is not growth. Learning is the seed. Action is what makes it bloom. And most people, they've got libraries of wisdom with no fruit on their tree. Not because they're lazy, but because they confused consumption with transformation. They believed that understanding a concept meant they had mastered it. But you don't master what you've learned. You master what you practice. Reading about strength doesn't make you strong. Studying courage doesn't make you brave. Understanding business doesn't make you wealthy. Only doing the work does that. So, stop waiting to feel ready. Stop thinking that the next piece of information is what you're missing. It's not. What you're missing is movement. Because at some point, you have to ask yourself, Am I studying because I'm committed to mastery? Or am I studying because I'm scared to move? There's a fine line between preparation and procrastination. And most people hide behind learning because action demands exposure. It demands you risk being seen. It demands you risk being bad at something before you're great at it. It demands that you trade certainty for momentum. And yes, it's uncomfortable. But comfort is not where greatness lives. It's where potential goes to die. So no, you don't need to know more. You need to do more with what you know. You need to turn your morning routine into non-negotiables. You need to turn your vision board into a schedule. You need to turn your passion into a practice. Because information is only power when it leads to transformation. And transformation doesn't begin with what you learn. It begins with what you do next. And what you do next should come from a mindset that's been rebuilt. Because mindset isn't something you recite. It's something you live. It's the inner command center that turns belief into behavior. It's what allows you to get punched in the mouth by failure and still whisper, "We're not done." And your mindset, it doesn't get stronger through lectures. It gets stronger through reps, through exposure, through choosing consistency over comfort. Because mindset without discipline is just hope in disguise. And hope is not a strategy. You need discipline. You need the spine to execute without applause. You need the will to take that book you highlighted and make it a part of your daily identity. Discipline isn't about doing what feels good. It's about doing what's aligned. And alignment, that only happens when your actions echo your values. Not when you say you want success, but when your schedule proves it. Not when you plan to write, to train, to build, but when you show up anyway. Tired, uncertain, uncomfortable. That's how habits are rewired. That's how lives are redesigned. That's how ideas become impact. So let this moment draw a line in the sand between who you were when you only consumed and who you are now that you produce. You are not a collector of concepts. You are a creator of momentum. Because belief without behavior is fiction, and vision without execution is just a hallucination. You say you believe in yourself, then prove it. Not to me, to you, with your calendar, with your habits, with your refusal to stay the same. Because belief is not a feeling. Belief is a decision to rise before you feel ready, to move before you feel perfect, to show up when everything in your body says stay the same. Belief is the fire beneath your excuses. It's the voice that interrupts your comfort with clarity. It's the moment you stop waiting for momentum and start creating it. And when belief takes root, vision comes alive. You stop dreaming in generalities and start building in specifics. You start seeing your future, not as a wish, but as a result, you are creating. You walk into every room already having seen the outcome, not because it's guaranteed, but because it's been decided. And when vision is married to belief, purpose is born. Purpose isn't about finding yourself. It's about remembering yourself. It's not a job title. It's not your passion. It's not some cute sentence you post on social media. Purpose is that invisible contract between your soul and your assignment. It's why you wake up different. It's why you endure more. It's why you refuse to quit, even when no one's watching. Because when you know your purpose, you stop needing permission. You stop needing applause. You stop chasing likes and start chasing legacy. And you don't run from repetition, and you respect it. You respect the mundane. You honor the boring. You fall in love with the grind that no one claps for, because you finally understand repetition is revelation. The world thinks success is found in some big, sexy moment. But you know the truth. Success is found in the discipline to do what you said you would. long after the emotion you set it in has faded. And when that level of discipline becomes your identity, gratitude becomes your power. Not the shallow kind, not write 3 things and move on kind. I mean, real gratitude. Gratitude that grounds you. Gratitude that sharpens you. Gratitude that makes you unstoppable. Because now you're not building from lack. You're building from alignment. You're not fighting for self-worth. You're expressing it. You don't need external validation anymore. Because every morning you wake up breathing, you're already winning. And the more grateful you are, the less excuses you tolerate, the less fear you entertain, the less average you accept in your orbit. Because when your spirit is full, you refuse to play small. Because when you stop playing small, the world doesn't just notice, it adjusts. You stop adapting to your environment, and your environment begins adapting to you. That's the power of adaptability. Not as a survival mechanism, but as a strategy of the elite. Because the future doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to the most flexible, the ones who don't break when the plan breaks, the ones who know how to pivot with poise, the ones who've trained their mind to ask, what's the opportunity inside this chaos? And there's always opportunity, always a lesson hiding inside disruption, always a new version of you waiting behind discomfort. But most people never meet that version because they run from the unfamiliar. They flinch at change. They forget you were built to evolve. Adaptability isn't weakness. It's warrior wisdom. It says, I am not attached to method-only mission. It says, I will do whatever it takes to stay in alignment with the life I said I would live. That's when resilience takes root. Not the fake kind that pretends everything is fine. Not the smile through pain, act like your tough version. Real resilience. The kind that looks failure in the face and says, you don't scare me anymore. The kind that sees rejection as redirection. The kind that doesn't need to be loud because it's grounded. Resilience isn't just the ability to bounce back. It's the power to bounce forward, to come out of pain more precise, to come out of storms more skilled, to come out of failure more focused. Because now you don't just survive life. You study it. You become a lifelong learner. Not because you need more certificates, but because you understand, the more I learn, the less I settle. The more I study my patterns, my pain, my path, the more dangerous I become to average. You read because you're building tools. You invest in mentors because you're collapsing time. You reflect because you're sharpening awareness. And awareness is the beginning of every breakthrough. Because you cannot transform what you are unwilling to observe. And you cannot master what you are afraid to measure. But now you've stopped hiding. Now you look yourself in the mirror eyes, wide open, and say, I am the architect now. No more potential without results. No more knowledge without action. No more living as a student of concepts instead of a practitioner of greatness. You've crossed the threshold. You've exited the cycle. You've stepped into the identity that doesn't need to be reminded anymore. Because the most powerful person in the room is not the one with the most ideas. It's the one with the most execution. And now, that's you. You don't just study wisdom. You embody it. You don't just highlight truth. You become it. You don't just learn anymore. You act, and every action whispers into the future. I will not be the one who almost did. I will not be the one who only knew. I will be the one who built, because I turned my learning into legacy. You are not just informed. You are on fire. You are not just aware. You are awake. You are not just a thinker anymore. You are a mover, a maker, a multiplier of momentum. And the world is now forced to reckon with a person who no longer just knows better, You are the one who does better because you didn't let your learning lead to knowledge. You let it lead to action. And that changes everything.